Right now, someone is scheming against you. Someone is smiling to your face while sharpening a knife behind their back. Someone is using your honesty, your loyalty, your goodness as a weapon to destroy you. And if you keep playing fair while they play dirty, you've already lost. This isn't about morality. This isn't about being the better person. This is about survival, because in a world where predators hunt in packs, the man who refuses to adapt becomes prey. Machiavelli knew this centuries ago. He understood that dirty players don't fear your ethics, they fear your intelligence. They fear the man who can see through their games and dismantle them without lifting a finger. They fear the man who fights with his mind, not his fists. And that's exactly what you're about to become. Not louder, not meaner, but smarter, dangerous, untouchable. This video will teach you 10 ruthless psychological tricks to outsmart anyone who tries to play dirty with you. These aren't theories. These are weapons Machiavelli himself would use. And once you master them, no one will dare cross you again, because they'll know you don't fight back. You obliterate. So if you're tired of being the victim, tired of losing to people with no honor, then watch closely, because from this moment forward, you become the player they never saw coming. You've been told your whole life that when someone goes low, you go high. That when people cheat, you stay honest. That karma will handle the rest. That's the biggest lie you've ever been sold. Because while you're being noble, they're winning. While you're taking the high road, they're taking everything you built. Machiavelli wrote that men judge more by the eye than by the hand. Translation: people don't care about your intentions. They only see result. And if someone plays dirty and wins, the world crowns them a genius. But if you play fair and lose, the world calls you a fool. Never let them know you see their game. The moment someone tries to manipulate you, betray you, or undermine you, your instinct is to confront them, to call them out, to demand an explanation. That's weakness, because confrontation gives them information. It shows them you're emotional, reactive, controllable. Instead, you do nothing. You say nothing. You smile. You nod. You act like their little trick worked. But behind that calm face, you're collecting data. You're observing patterns. You're noting who they talk to, what they want, where they're vulnerable. This is what separates the weak from the dangerous. Weak men react immediately. They explode. They defend. They try to expose the enemy. But powerful men wait. They let the dirty player think they won. And while the enemy celebrates, you're planning 10 moves ahead. Machiavelli said a wise ruler must appear merciful, faithful, and honest, but must be ready to act the opposite when necessary. That's the art. You don't announce your strategy. You don't threaten. You don't warn. You make them believe you're harmless. And when they least expect it, when their guard is down, when they've moved on to their next victim, that's when you strike. Not with anger, not with emotion, but with cold, calculated precision. They won't even know what hit them. And by the time they realize, it's already over. So remember this. When someone plays dirty, the worst thing you can do is react. The best thing you can do is observe, wait, and let them think they're winning. Because the man who controls his reaction controls the outcome. And that's your first weapon. Here's what most people don't understand about dirty players. They're not actually strong. They're desperate. They cheat because they can't win fairly. They lie because the truth doesn't serve them. They manipulate because direct confrontation scares them. And once you realize this, you unlock your second psychological trick. Make them overextend. Every dirty player has a weakness. Ego. They need to feel like they're in control. They need to believe they're smarter than you. So you give them that illusion. You let them think they're pulling the strings, and in their arrogance, they overplay their hand. This is how you destroy them. You don't fight their first move, you absorb it. You let them hit you once, maybe twice. You let them believe their tactics are working, and what happens? They get comfortable, they get reckless, They start making mistakes because they think you're too weak to fight back. Machiavelli called this the art of appearing weaker than you are. When your enemy believes you're beneath them, they stop watching their back. They stop calculating. They start operating on autopilot. And that's when you take everything. Think about it like chess. A master player doesn't panic when they lose a pawn. They sacrifice pieces deliberately to lure the opponent into a trap. The amateur sees the loss and thinks they're winning. But the master knows the endgame was decided 3 moves ago. So when someone lies to you, don't immediately call them out. Let them lie again. When someone tries to undermine you, don't defend yourself. Let them continue. When someone spreads rumors, don't chase them around correcting the story. Let the rumors grow. Why? Because every lie they tell, every rumor they spread, every dirty move they make leaves a trail. And the more they do it, the sloppier they get. Eventually, people start noticing. Eventually, their own web of deception collapses on top of them. And you never said a word. You never fought. You just let them destroy themselves. That's the second trick. Don't stop your enemy when they're making a mistake. Encourage it. Let them think they're untouchable. Let them get arrogant, because arrogance is the beginning of their end. And your silence is the rope they'll hang themselves with. Now here's where it gets darker. Once you've let them overextend, once they've made their mistakes, it's time for your third trick. Control the narrative before they do. Dirty players survive by twisting the story. They'll betray you, then play the victim. They'll sabotage you, then act confused. They'll lie to your face, then gaslight you into doubting your own memory. But here's the truth. Whoever speaks first controls the story. And whoever controls the story controls public perception. So you don't wait for them to spin their lie. You speak first. Not emotionally, not defensively, but calmly, strategically, and with fact. Machiavelli understood this. He said it's not enough to be right. You must appear right to those who matter. So when someone tries to frame you, you don't argue with them privately. You expose them publicly, but not through anger, through evidence, through witnesses, through undeniable facts presented in a way that makes you look composed and them look desperate. This is psychological warfare. You don't scream the truth. You present it so calmly that anyone listening realizes you're the only one in control. Think of it like this. When a liar is caught, they panic. They raise their voice. They deflect. They attack. But when an honest man is accused, he stays calm. He doesn't need to defend because the truth does it for him. So when you control the narrative, you do it with precision. You don't say, he's a liar. You say, here's what he said on Monday, here's what he said on Wednesday, and here's the evidence that proves both can't be true. You let others connect the dots. You let them see the inconsistency, and suddenly, without you even attacking, the dirty player's credibility is destroyed. That's the third weapon. Never let someone else define your story. Speak first, speak clearly, speak with evidence, and let the truth dismantle them while you remain untouchable. But let's be honest, sometimes you can't expose them publicly. Sometimes the dirty player has more power, more connections, more resources. So here's your fourth trick, and this one is brutal. Isolate them socially. Machiavelli wrote that a man without allies is a man without power. No matter how clever, how ruthless, how dirty someone is, they can't survive alone. So you don't attack them directly. You remove their support system. You become the person everyone likes. You become reliable. You make yourself indispensable to the people around you. And while you're doing that, you subtly let others see who the dirty player really is. Not through gossip, not through complaints, but through questions. You ask innocent questions that plant seeds of doubt. You say things like, have you noticed how he always blames others when things go wrong? Isn't it strange that everyone who works closely with him eventually leaves? You're not accusing, you're observing. And observations are far more powerful than accusations because people feel like they discovered the truth themselves. This is the dark art of social manipulation. You don't destroy someone's reputation by attacking it. You let them destroy it while you guide others to notice. And over time, people start distancing themselves. Opportunities dry up, allies disappear, and the dirty player finds himself alone, wondering what happened. Meanwhile, you've built a fortress of loyalty around yourself, not because you begged for it, but because you earned it by being the one person everyone can trust while they learned they couldn't trust him. That's the fourth trick. Don't fight the dirty player head on. Cut off his supply lines. Isolate him. Make him irrelevant. Because a snake without venom is just a worm, and worms get stepped on. Now here's something most people are too weak to do. When someone lies about you, don't just defend yourself. Use their lie to expose their character. When someone manipulates, don't just avoid it. Study it, learn it, and when the time is right, use the exact same tactic against them so precisely that they realize you've been watching the whole time. This is what Machiavelli meant when he said the lion cannot protect himself from traps and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. You must be both. You must have the strength of a lion and the cunning of a fox. So when someone spreads a rumor about you, you don't deny it emotionally. You calmly say, "It's interesting that this rumor started exactly one day after I turned down his proposal." You don't accuse. You just connect dots. When someone tries to take credit for your work, you don't argue. You wait. And in the next meeting, you casually mention, "I'm glad the idea I proposed last month is finally getting traction." You're not fighting. You're repositioning the narrative. And when someone tries to manipulate you emotionally, playing victim, crying, guilting you, you don't fall for it. You say, "I understand you're upset. Let's revisit this." When you're ready to have a logical conversation, you just disarm their entire strategy, because manipulators rely on emotional reactions. The moment you stay logical, their power evaporates. That's the fifth weapon. Never let them use a tactic you haven't already mastered, because the moment they realize you can play their game better than they can, they'll never try it again. And that's when you've won. But here's the part no one tells you. Sometimes, the best way to outsmart a dirty player is to do absolutely nothing. That's your sixth trick. When someone attacks you, betrays you, tries to drag you into their chaos, the natural instinct is to defend, to engage, to fight back. But Machiavelli knew something most men never learn. Silence is more terrifying than words. Absence is more painful than confrontation. When you vanish, when you stop responding, when you go completely silent, something happens. The dirty player panics. They expected a reaction. They expected anger, sadness, desperation, but instead they get nothing. Did he not care? Is he planning something? Did I miscalculate? And in that uncertainty, they unravel. This is the power of strategic withdrawal. You don't explain. You don't defend. You don't give them closure. You simply remove your presence from their life and let them sit with the consequences. Think of it like this. A child throws a tantrum to get attention. If you react, you reward the behavior. But if you walk away, if you show complete indifference, the tantrum loses its power. The same applies to dirty players. They thrive on your reaction. Your anger fuels them. Your pain validates them. So when someone plays dirty, sometimes the smartest move is to say nothing, do nothing, and disappear. Let them wonder. Let them spiral. Let them realize that you were never as invested as they thought. And when they come back, begging for a response, for closure, for anything, you're already 10 steps ahead, living a life they're no longer part of. That's the sixth trick. Master the art of strategic absence, because the man who needs nothing from you is the man you can never control. Now let's talk about something even more dangerous. The seventh trick. Make them think they've won. This is advanced. This is Machiavellian mastery. When someone plays dirty and achieves their goal, whether it's taking your position, stealing your idea, turning people against you, don't retaliate immediately. Let them celebrate. Let them believe they've destroyed you. Let them think you're finished. Why? Because winners get comfortable. They stop watching their backs. They stop preparing. They think the war is over. But you know the war just started. Machiavelli said, "Never interrupt your enemy when he is making a mistake, and celebrating prematurely is the biggest mistake. So you let them win the battle, you go quiet, and while they're basking in their victory, you're studying, strategizing, positioning yourself for a comeback so devastating they'll never recover. This is the long game. This is how empires are built, not by winning every fight, but by losing strategically and returning when victory is guaranteed." Think of every great leader, every legendary fighter, every unstoppable force in history. They all had moments of defeat. But the ones who became legends didn't panic, they didn't react, they absorbed the loss, learned from it, and came back stronger. So when someone plays dirty and wins, you congratulate them, you let them have their moment. And while they're celebrating, you're sharpening your blade. Because the sweetest revenge isn't loud, it's patient, it's calculated, it's showing up one day, months, or years later, so successful, so powerful, so untouchable that they realize their dirty little victory meant nothing. That's the seventh trick. Let them think they've won, because the man who believes the game is over is the easiest man to destroy. Here's the eighth trick, and it's one of the darkest. Expose them by making them expose themselves. You don't need to prove someone is dirty. You just need to create situations where their true nature reveals itself. Machiavelli understood that people always show you who they are. You just have to pay attention. So instead of accusing, instead of arguing, you set traps, innocent scenarios that force them to make a choice. And every time they choose dishonesty, manipulation, or betrayal, you take note. This is how you build an undeniable case. You give them opportunities to be honest, and they choose to lie. You give them chances to be loyal, and they choose to betray. And when the time comes, you don't need to accuse them of anything. You simply present the pattern. You say, "I noticed this happened, then this." I'm not accusing, I'm just asking, is there a pattern here? And suddenly, everyone sees it, not because you pointed it out aggressively, but because you let the evidence speak. This is the art of strategic patience. You don't react to the first lie, you document it. You don't retaliate after the first betrayal, you observe it. And by the time you're ready to act, you have so much evidence that their guilt is undeniable. Think of it like building a case in court. A good lawyer doesn't scream at the jury. He calmly presents fact after fact until the truth is impossible to ignore. That's what you do with dirty players. You let them bury themselves with their own action. And when you finally reveal the pattern, you do it so calmly, so logically, that no one can defend them. That's the eighth weapon. Don't expose them. Let them expose themselves. And when they do, you'll be the one holding the mirror. The ninth trick is something most people are too afraid to use. Become unpredictable. Dirty players survive by reading people. They study your patterns, your reactions, your weaknesses. And once they know how you operate, they know how to beat you. So you break the pattern. You become the one person they can't figure out. Machiavelli said, "The wise man does at once what the fool does finally." Translation: don't be predictable. Don't be the guy who always forgives. Don't be the guy who always fights back. Don't be the guy who always stays silent. Be all of it. Be none of it. Shift constantly. One day you're friendly. The next day you're distant. One day you forgive an insult. The next day you destroy someone for the same offense. Not because you're unstable, but because you're strategic. You're creating confusion. You're making it impossible for them to anticipate your next move. This is psychological warfare at its peak. When people can't predict you, they can't manipulate you, they can't prepare, they can't strategize. They're always one step behind, reacting to you instead of controlling you. Think of the greatest leaders, the most feared figures in history. Were they predictable? Did people know how they'd respond? No, they were wild cards. They kept everyone guessing, and that uncertainty became their power. So when someone plays dirty, don't follow a script. Don't do what they expect. If they think you'll yell, stay silent. If they think you'll stay silent, confront them publicly. If they think you'll forgive, cut them off forever. If they think you're done with them, reappear like nothing happened. Keep them off balance. Keep them guessing. Keep them terrified of what you might do next. That's the ninth trick. Become the one variable they can't solve, because the man they can't predict is the man they can't defeat. And now, the 10th and final trick. This is the ultimate Machiavellian move. Win so completely that they never try again. When you finally make your move, when you finally respond to their dirty games, don't just win. Dominate. Crush them so thoroughly that they never think about crossing you again. Machiavelli wrote that men ought either to be indulged or utterly destroyed, because they will revenge themselves for small injuries, but cannot do so for great ones. Translation: if you're going to retaliate, make it final. Half measures create enemies. Total victories create legends. So when the time comes, when you've gathered your evidence, isolated their allies, controlled the narrative, and set your trap, you don't hold back. You don't show mercy. You don't give them a chance to recover. You end it, not out of cruelty, but out of strategy. Because if you leave them wounded, they'll come back. But if you obliterate them completely, they'll never dare approach you again. This doesn't mean violence. This doesn't mean cruelty. This means being so decisive, so overwhelming, so undeniable in your response that everyone who witnesses it learns a lesson. Don't mess with him. He doesn't just fight back, he erases you. Think of it like this. When a dirty player realizes they can't beat you, that every trick they tried backfired, that every move they made was anticipated, that every ally they had turned on them, and that their reputation is destroyed beyond repair, they don't just lose, they learn. They learn that you are not the one to play with. And that message spreads. Others see it, others hear about it, and suddenly you're no longer a target, you're a warning. That's the 10th and final trick. When you move with such precision and power that no one ever questions your strength again. Because the goal isn't revenge. The goal is immunity. You want to become the kind of person dirty players avoid entirely. Not because you're loud, but because you're lethal. So now you have all 10 tricks. You've learned to stay silent while they expose themselves. You've learned to let them overextend and destroy their own credibility. You've learned to control the narrative before they twist it. You've learned to isolate them socially and remove their power base. You've learned to use their weapons against them with surgical precision. You've learned the power of strategic absence and how silence can destroy louder than words. You've learned to let them think they've won while you prepare the real victory. You've learned to make them expose themselves through patterns they can't deny. You've learned to become unpredictable, a variable they can't solve. And you've learned to win so completely that they never try again. These aren't just tricks. These are the operating principles of power. This is how kings survive, how empires rise, how legends are born. Machiavelli didn't write for the weak. He wrote for the ones willing to see reality as it is and act accordingly. And now, you're one of them. You're no longer the victim. You're no longer the fool who plays fair while others cheat. You're the strategist, the silent assassin, the one who doesn't need to raise his voice because his actions speak louder than any threat ever could. So from this moment forward, when someone plays dirty, you don't panic, you don't react, you don't cry about fairness. You smile, you observe, you calculate, and you dismantle them so cleanly they won't even realize they're already finished. Because you're not here to fight, you're here to win. And winners don't play fair, they play smart. If this video opened your eyes, if you're ready to stop being the victim and start being the threat, then hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel because we're not done. There are more weapons, more strategy, more truths that will make you untouchable. And if you're serious about mastering the psychology of power, then you don't want to miss what's coming next, because this isn't self-help. This is war, and you just armed yourself with the mind of Machiavelli. Now go, outsmart them, outplay them, and make them regret ever thinking you were easy prey.